Sekhmet is instantly recognizable today from her fierce appearance, bearing the proud head of a lioness, crowned by the sun disk and cobra, with the lower body of an Egyptian woman. As with many Egyptian deities, Sekhmet is a complex character with a dramatic mythology and enduring influence, which continues to inspire people today. Her name translates to the powerful female one, and serves as an effective proclamation of her ancient might. Sekhmet is often seen in connection to the cat goddess, Bastet, and the bovine goddess, Hathor. Though sufficiently distinct, these goddesses are often syncretized, making it oftentimes unavoidable to explore one without the other. Sekhmet is a challenging goddess. She was the patron of healers and doctor priests, with an unrivaled ability to both inflict and retract illness and disease, bringing great harm as well as offering healing and fierce protection. It was not just thankfulness for these gifts that made her cult popular, but Sekhmet inspired great fear and needed to be appeased to ensure her blessing. She was a bloodthirsty warrior goddess who brought death, fear, and suffering. Sekhmet, therefore, represents ancient human fears which continue to affect people across the globe today. It is Sekhmet's wild, terrifying, and untamed nature that many find so intriguing. She is a goddess of contradiction, sovereign over violence and sickness, as well as patron of healing and protection. She is truly the mighty one. Today, Sekhmet often bears the title Goddess of Healing, relegating her to this specific realm of influence. Ancient Egyptian deities, as with many other ancient pantheons, were extremely complex, with powers intersecting with numerous aspects of life and death. Identifying Sekhmet as Goddess of Healing implies that this was her primary area of concern and divine occupation. It is true that many of her priests were also doctors, and that people often pray to her for healing. However, numerous ancient texts also describe her as the cause of the disease in the first place. Many prefer to emphasize her healing attributes, which is completely valid, but it is vital that we recognize her dangerous aspects also, as the unleashed manifestation of female rage and nature's destructive forces. At times, nature can be harrowing. This is a fact of life, reflected in many of the goddesses and gods across world cultures. Sekhmet is a North African deity whose origins and ancient worship were firmly located within the Egyptian landscape and cultural worldview. This is important to remember, not only because the land itself explains much about her character, but also because there are many today who are not of North African descent and who live outside of Egypt, reviving her worship abroad. Sekhmet did not receive the same enthusiastic reception from the Greco-Roman world that goddesses such as Set did. Whatever the reason for this, Sekhmet has maintained a distinctly Egyptian and Nubian identity. Wherever possible, one should keep this context in mind, paying due respect to the beliefs of ancient Egyptian ancestors, as well as towards the living descendants who reside in these landscapes today, and whose heritage we offer the greatest respect to. Sekhmet's character and mythology were formed around the flowing waters, the desert sands, and the intense sun of Egypt's ancient landscape. One of the names that the ancient Egyptians knew their land by was Kemet, meaning the black land, after the black soil of the Nile banks. Kemet was, and Egypt is, a valley of fecund fields, swaying palms, and ripe fruits. Sailing along the river is a feast of color, from its piercing blue sky to its lush green foliage, and the gleaming yellow mountains in the distance. The river is cradled between the eastern and western mountains, reminding you that the desert resides close by. For the ancient and modern Egyptians, the intensity of the Egyptian summer sun was, and is, a very real fact of life. In ancient times, the end of the summer consisted of scorching heat and parched fields, and people eagerly awaited the coming of the flood, which occurred annually until the establishment of the Aswan High Dam in 1970. Contrastingly, the winter months welcomed cooler temperatures with inundated fields, rich soil, and abundant crop growth. This dichotomy formed an Egyptian worldview of the balance between order and chaos, physically expressed through the luscious floodplain and the arid desert. The river valley where the Egyptian people settled and built their civilization was considered the realm of order, under the jurisdiction of the pharaoh, the embodiment of the god Heru on earth. The desert, on the other hand, was an unoccupied, mysterious landscape, exposed to the creatures of chaos and the sovereignty of the god, Sutek, though certainly worshipped in the floodplain settlements. Sekhmet could be found roaming the outskirts and places suited to the habitat of lions and land predators. Sekhmet was very much a goddess tied to the landscape from which she originated, reflected by her associations with sunlight, heat, fire, and the untamed wild. It is easy to understand Sekhmet's destructive qualities when one considers the intensity of the Egyptian sun that she embodies. Whilst other Egyptian goddesses represent beneficent solar qualities, Sekhmet embodies its destructive potential, that which burns, consumes, and causes drought. Her fiery breath can be felt on especially hot days, where heat waves are visible before your eyes. On days such as this, one can tangibly feel the lioness's hot breath panting over them, burning skin, causing thirst. Wild animals roam the desert and the Nile Valley alike, although with time, larger predators were overhunted or chose to move downriver. There are several leonine deities within the ancient Egyptian pantheon, with a clear predominance of female lionesses. Sekhmet is iconic amongst them, and her manifestation as a lioness is integral to her nature. Leonine imagery is attested during the pre-dynastic period of Egypt, around 3200 to 3000 BCE, found carved on ceremonial palettes. According to common, though also contested theory, schematic versions of these palettes originally functioned as plates for the grinding and subsequent application of cosmetics, which were potentially worn during hunting rituals. More elaborate ceremonial palettes began to appear during the Naqada Third period, suggesting an elite interest in hunting. This is supported by the zooarchaeological evidence, indicating that meat consumption occupied a minimal percentage of common diets. Despite considerable iconographic representation, the ritual hunt was a symbolic display of order triumphing over chaos, expressed by human hunters defeating wild prey. Sekhmet's alignment with the lioness meant she was believed to possess a ferocious protectiveness over her cubs, and undertook the responsibility of leading the pride's merciless hunt for food. Both these roles, ensuring protection and obtaining food, necessitates a violence in the animal kingdom which is required to maintain nature's balance. The earliest attestation of Sekhmet's name dates to Egypt's Old Kingdom in the pyramid texts, around 2631 to 2181 BCE. These texts are inscriptions found within the earliest pyramids in Egypt, predating those on the famous Giza complex. To some, these pyramids might not look like much on the outside, but inside the walls are covered in columns upon columns of magical hieroglyphic texts. These consist of sacred utterances intended to ensure the pharaoh's ascension into the afterlife by magic and divine assistance. It is here that Sekhmet is first mentioned by name, and in connection to the other two feline goddesses, Bastet and Shesmete. In one utterance, Sekhmet and Shesmete are joint mothers of the pharaoh. I, the pharaoh, have emerged from the Ennead's thighs. I have been conceived by Sekhmet, and Shesmete is the one who gave birth to me. Such a statement demonstrates the ability for ancient Egyptian religion to hold multiple seemingly contradictory truths at once. The pyramid texts appear very early on in ancient Egyptian history, with no clear antecedents. However, they are so well developed that scholars have surmised that their mythic context must predate their recording within the pyramids. Therefore, though Sekhmet's name appears here for the very first time in writing, it is likely that she had a religious presence much earlier than this. By the 5th dynasty, the cult of Sekhmet is well attested as a particular favourite of the pharaoh Sahura. The pyramid text references to Sekhmet and her close connection with Sahura tell us that from the beginning of Egyptian history, she could be regarded as the mother of pharaohs. These rulers inherited the throne of Egypt through their maternal link with goddesses such as Sekhmet, the daughter of Ra, the creator himself. If you would like to learn more about the ancient Egyptian goddess Sekhmet, I recommend you start with our book, Sekhmet, Lady of Flame, Eye of Ra, by Olivia Church, who also provided the words for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe for weekly
Much love,
content,
Israel.
and we'll see you